Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. And I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. Today, our very special guest is Randy Crane. He is affectionately known as the Fearless Marketer. He's a nationally acclaimed sales and marketing expert with over 40 years of experience in many global brands and also startups. He is passionate about leadership and emotional marketing strategies. I'm going to ask him about that for sure. Emotional marketing strategies that deliver real value to customers and impact businesses. He's a mentor, he's a visionary, and he is a true master of his craft. And Randy has been inspiring others to reach for greatness and achieve their dreams. So welcome, Randy.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I'm glad to be here.
So let's begin at the beginning. I want to know how you became the Fearless Marketer.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I've been doing marketing for 43 years, and maybe today I'm the Fearless Marketer. And when I was younger, it was more like the fear of marketing. So for me, it all started with me with my father. My dad was a great salesman. And when I say that, he was a tool salesman. He would go around to different mechanics and bike gangs and things like that. And he would sell tools. But the one nice thing about him was that he was a very kind man, and people knew this. And I learned that he put a lot of emotion into what he did. Okay. He was very kind. He was very caring about his customers. And my father died in 1979. And, in 79, all his customers came to his funeral. And I thought that was pretty outstanding. And so after that, I went to school. I got a degree. Actually, I was going to become a priest. And, but that's another story for another podcast. But after leaving the church, I decided I was going to pursue a career in marketing. Okay. Went to school, and after that, I joined a brokerage firm in Toronto, and I was with them for a little while, but I didn't quite understand, or the way they market their product was much different than what I'd ever thought of. But they had a guy who walked around the floor. You understand cold calling, so they had a guy walking around the floor manager, and this is back in the 80s. So he would turn around and he'd say, get on the phone. You're not making commissions sitting there, so it was always that constant grind. And, they trained you in different types of closes and stuff like that. And none of it ever worked for me. And so one day, this has gone on for months, and it gotten to the point where I just couldn't stand to work for this guy. I mean, it was just, he would, when you work with somebody that you don't like, it just drains the absolute life right out of you. So I stayed there, and I said, I've been doing it your way for so long. I'm going to do it my way. And I got on the phone with this guy, and I just let him talk. And he talked about his wife and his kids and his business, and, the things he liked and the things he didn't like. And I ended up selling the guy for $150,000 investment. And the floor manager came over to me, and he said to me, how did you close him? Did you close him hard? And I said, no, I just let him talk. And, I was compassionate with him. I was empathetic with him. And I built a little bit of trust with him. And he said, trust? Nobody buys out of trust because they trust you. And I thought, he says, you got to hit them hard, And I started to learn that, you know what, if you got to kill them, if you got to kill them to close them, it's not worth it. And so I left there and I went to several other companies. And I'm sure you know how the whole corporate thing works. I got a senior position in a couple of major companies, and you know, when management changes, everybody goes. They bring in new management. So that happened to me a couple of times, and then after that, I decided I was going to become my own marketing guy, and that's it. 1980, or sorry, 1990, I started my own company, and it's been that way ever since.
Okay, so I'm curious because you said something at the beginning of your story about how you became the fearless marketer. You said
Yeah,
something about fear of marketing,
yeah.
and I am sure that there are a lot of folks that listen to this podcast
Hmm.
that have that fear of marketing. So what is that about? And if you had the fear of marketing, how did you get past it?
Oh, you know what? Um, you know, it's funny. I find myself doing things today that I didn't do yesterday. You know, if I knew then what I know now, everything would be different. You know how that is. And you know, when I first started at marketing, it was daunting. You know, because when you're taught in school, you're taught mechanically how to do things. Okay, emotion and empathy and compassion doesn't really come into play. So when you go to school, you learn the rudiments of what you're learning. So when you come out of school, this is the program that they've given you. So you try to apply that into your work. Okay, you know, work hard, be a hard worker. Okay. The interesting part about it is that when you come out of school and you have that built into your head. You think everything runs the same way, but human beings don't work that way. Human beings run on connectivity. They run on compassion, empathy. Okay. You and I can be friends because we have a connection. We have a chemical connection between us. Okay. Um, on the other hand, you have people you know that you have no connection. Okay. And those people you kind of avoid like the plague. You don't ever think about it. And I think this is one of the things, you know, and this is why I told the story about how I was trained to sell in the 80s was, you know, uh, FAB, you know, sell them the features, the advantages, and the benefits. ABC, you know, always be closing. I'm sure you've heard that before. Um,
Absolutely.
it's a rudiment. It's a rudiment, but that rudiment doesn't apply. It applies to everything else but people. Okay. So the question comes is why do people buy? People buy because they feel connected. Okay. People have connection to two things in their life. Number one, they want to be happy. Can we agree?
Yes.
Right. The caveat to that is that some people are happy in their own misery. Okay. The other thing is that every single person on the planet is connected to their problems in life. They're emotionally connected to their problems. So, as a salesperson, you want to figure out what those problems are and then solve them. That's the epitome of a great entrepreneur, person who can take somebody else's problem and solve it for them. So, when you solve somebody's problem, you become their savior in a matter of speaking. And figuring out what the problems are that people have, solving those problems is how you make sales. You don't make sales by going to see somebody and say, Hi, I'm Randy, and I'm with this company, and we've been in business for 20 years. We have the best people, the best products, the best prices, the best guarantees, the best delivery, blah, 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 blah. Those are all things that are very nice to know, but there's nothing emotionally connected to any of them. Okay. People are interested in what's in it for them. Okay. It's like when you go and you sell a piece of software, you say, oh, well, I'm looking for a piece of software that can do databasing. Oh, yeah, this can do databasing, but it can do your calendar, and it can do this, and it can do that, and it can do that. I don't care about any of that. I care about that it can do this one function really, really well. And if it can, then I make the buy. Okay. Everybody wants to sell the features. People don't buy features, people buy resolution. They buy the things that resolve their problems. So the advice that I would give your audience is that be emotionally connected with the customer that you have. Get to know who they are. Just like the guy I sat on the phone with for maybe 30 minutes. And he talked about his wife and his kids and his problems. And then once I figured out what his problem was, I solved the problem. So that's what I think.
So my question, and for everything that you've just been saying, is how do you know what the problem is before you talk to the person?
That's a great question. So there are a variety of ways that I do it. If I don't know the product or the service, then what I do is I do some research. I mean, for me, I'm a research guy anyway. I like to R&D something to find out as much as I can about that product. And then I start looking at what are the problems that people could have with that product. And I make a list. Okay. And on one side, I have the problems. And then to the left of those problems, I'm going to write the emotions that people feel when they have those problems. Like, how does it make you feel? Okay. And then I make a list. It could be 6 or 7, it could be 10, whatever it is. But I make the list of the problems, and then I figure out what the emotions are that connect. On the opposite side, I look at the problem, I look at the solution that I have, and how that solution works. Okay. And so now I have a problem, a solution, and then the solutions, I make another sidebar, and I figure out what the feelings are that the person feels after they buy. Now, from there, I can go into a sales call and I can start asking questions. And if I've done my research well enough, I have all the questions that can be answered. If I don't, and I say, well, listen, what's the problem you'd like to solve? If he tells me that the problem that he'd like to solve, and I don't have it on my list, I write it down. And then I keep making that list bigger. And then what I do is when it comes to marketing or selling, it doesn't matter. Either one's being done on the internet or one's being done face to face or something over the phone. It doesn't matter what the communication medium is. Having those answers to those problems is what makes you the expert. It makes you the reliable source. And don't get me wrong, there's been times where I've turned around and said, well, what seems to be the problem you're trying to solve? And he'll tell me. And I'll say, wow, okay, that's not on my list. Let me write that one down and I'll get back to you, and then I'd figure it out for him. And I would call him back. And you know what? People they're understanding. They'll let you talk. So the more people you talk to, the more research you do. I've always found that fear is caused by a lack of knowledge. Okay. When you have knowledge eventually produces confidence, and fear can't live in a confident environment. So you become confident in who you are, confident in what you know, and the fear just vanishes.
It's very interesting to me what you're saying, because in our 3X appointments program, which teaches sales professionals to prospect, we give them an exercise where they have to write down all the features, and then next to the features, we have them write down the problem that that particular feature fixes.
Right.
And the other thing that we do is we have them interview existing clients. And one of the questions that they need to ask the client is, how do you feel about fill in the blank? And what's really interesting is most of them never ask that question.
Of course.
So that's where the fear comes in
It's the gray area.
Yeah.
I used to know a fellow by the name of John Matthews, and he was a partner of mine back in the 80s. And he always said to me, the only one thing and one objection you can't overcome is it doesn't feel right. And years ago, this is back in the 80s, so I started thinking about this, you're right. So if it doesn't feel right, then I've done something wrong where that prospect is concerned. Therefore, I want to know that it feels right before he has a chance to say it doesn't feel right, right?
Absolutely.
So what you want to be able to do, and this is the thing, people respond to people. If you turn your sales call into a machine, that's what it will be. And when I say machine, I rudimentary, here's my presentation, here's my demonstration, here's my pre-close, and here's my close. Okay. You want to treat it that way, your customer will treat you back if the same way. On the other hand, if you show your humanistic approach, be human, be compassionate, be empathetic. When you talk to people and you feel that connection with people, okay? It always reminded me of that statement that came out in the 80s, 70s. It's not personal, it's just business. Are you kidding? Nothing aside from loving your spouse, nothing is more personal than business. Okay? And make it personal. I have customers that have been with me now since I think my longest one's been with me since 1998. And we work every year together on projects, marketing projects for their company. My clients tend to stick around. And the reason they do is because we've built trust over time. But there's a chemical connection between my clients and me, which, there are cheaper marketers in the world. There are probably better ones, but they don't go looking. It's because of the connection. So be connected to your customers. Be on the same chemical connection that they are. Does that sound right? I'm not sure whether that sounds right or not.
Same chemical connection, same page, same place,
page. Thank you. That's what I was kind of looking for.
Yeah. So we're going to pause here for a moment for a word from our sponsor. But then when we come back, Randy, I want to hear more about the do's and the don'ts of emotional marketing. And also, there is a difference between marketing and sales, because when you're selling, you're actually speaking with another human being. And when you're marketing, you haven't yet spoken with the prospect. So I want to come back to that in just a moment. But first, we have a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. And just about every guest that I have interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners. As a matter of fact, Randy Crane has a free gift for our listeners. And so what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we have put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault. It's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every single week. We release a podcast, we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like and download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. And then come back the next week because there's going to be another gift. So go to bit.ly/gift vault, or the link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. So go to the notes, click on the link, download your gift. You will be glad you did. And we are back with Randy Crane, the fearless marketer.
Thank you.
So Randy, let's talk about the difference between selling and marketing, because when you are selling, you're talking to someone, you can pivot if you need to, you can ask all the questions that you might need to like find out what's going on. When you're marketing, you're putting up that landing page or you're writing emails or who knows, maybe you're even doing direct mail, but you're not talking to a prospect. So how do you make that emotional, chemical, sales page, same page connection?
Sure. It's funny. I'm doing I started writing a blog the other day about what is the difference between sales and marketing. So it's interesting you asked me that question, and whenever I do a live discussion, this question constantly comes up. What is the difference between sales and marketing? And, those two things are used interchangeably. Okay. You'll see salespeople and you'll have your marketing department or vice versa. And then you'll see some guy who's called the director of sales and marketing. Marketing and sales are like accounting and legal. They kind of house themselves in the same office, but they're two entirely different things. Marketing it refers to the activities that a company undertakes to promote its products or services and to create awareness and interest among potential customers. Marketing encompasses research, advertising, branding, public relations, and other activities that establish and maintain a brand image and develop value for their products or services. Sales, on the other hand, is a process of converting potential customers into actual customers by persuading them or selling them to buy their product or service. It involves the activities of identifying potential customers, relationship building, presenting a product or service, handling objections, and closing the sale generates revenue. So in summary, marketing is about creating awareness and generating interest, while sales is more about converting that interest into revenue that closes the sale. Both are critical to the success of a business, and they should work together to achieve some of their common goals. So where does sales live? Sales lives within marketing. Okay. To me, the whole act of selling versus marketing. Marketing is more about building trust in the brand. And I think the easiest way to really explain it is like craft dinner. Craft dinner. Do you have craft dinner in the States? I'm sure you do.
Probably.
Okay. So craft dinner is known as the best stuff on the market. It's gone that way over a period of time. Same thing as, when you need a facial tissue, people don't say, oh, can you pass me a facial tissue? No, they say, can you have a Kleenex? Kleenex is a brand. It's not a facial. It's not a product. It's a brand. The brand is notarized. And it's a result of just phenomenal marketing. Okay. A great example of this is Nike. Nike is iconic for their emotion-based marketing that has produced them to become the number one product in the market by far, by far. Sales, on the other hand, is a different story. You don't see, nobody's ever sold you an iPhone. Nike is not sold to door to door, and you don't get cold calls from Google, or do you?
No.
No. It's a result of great marketing that's done that. On the other hand, companies like Electrolux and Filter Queen vacuums and companies along those lines don't put as much emphasis on marketing it and put more on direct sales. That personal contact, that being able to better control the customer journey is important to them, and being able to close that sale and develop repeat business and referrals from that. Okay. Marketing and sales are two entirely different functions that operate within the same office space. I'm a believer that you need marketing just as much as you need sales, and sales to support the marketing as well.
So then what is the disconnect that so many companies have between marketing and sales? Because there are so many sales departments that I have encountered that marketing sends them, and I'm making finger quotes here for our audience, they send them leads and the salespeople don't use them because they may or may not be leads. So what is that disconnect?
You know what? The disconnect is not in the lead. The disconnect is in the person. And I've experienced this many times over the years. And I'm sure, Wendy, I'm sure you have too. You get a lead. If I'm a salesperson, I got one lead, I'm calling that lead. But if I've got 20 leads that have come through from a direct marketing effort or from telemarketing, whatever the case is, then what I do is I do this. Yeah, don't want that one. Don't want that one. Oh, yeah, I'll call that one after. And they start filtering. And then they look at the sale, or they look at the lead, they pick up the phone, they call the guy. The guy says, because it is a lead, the salesperson is expecting that the guy's going to roll over on the floor and say, oh yeah, here's my wallet. And that's not the case. So they call up the guy and they say, well, listen, I'd like to book an appointment with you. Well, you know what? I'm really busy this week and next week. Oh yeah, well, we can do it next week. And then he goes down and he does a poor job of the sale, poor job of the presentation or whatever it is he's doing. And then he comes back and he says, yeah, you see this lead? This is no good. The guy's not interested anyway. And I'm sure you've experienced this. Okay.
I think there are two things. I mean, one is the skill of the salesperson that's following up on the lead, but the other is what's the definition of a lead? Because to me, somebody that opened an email is not a lead, or somebody that, if you're in B2B and they don't have the right title, they're not a lead either. And and those kind of things get passed along. I like to
look at a lead as an open door. It's an open door. That's all it is. You know, I pick up the phone and I call Joe Smith, and I don't know Joe Smith from Adam. I see maybe he's the director of marketing for the company. So I pick up the phone, I call the guy. I find out, no, he's not. He's actually a product manager with the company, but his boss is so-and-so. And then I can start maneuvering myself through the company, okay, to finding the right person. So what do I look at that as I look at it as an open door? That's all it is.
Yeah, I think we need to have better, for the most part, need to have better communication between marketing and sales to understand,
for sure,
you know, what is really a lead, because passing along a bunch of names that are not really leads is not a productive use of anyone's time, marketing
No,
or sales.
you're absolutely right. And, um, I learned this over time, is that everybody is wanting to expedite the process. Okay. I'm a salesperson. I want to expedite, or I'm a marketing guy. I want to expedite the presentation and the closing process so I can get your money. Okay. Once I get your money, then the customer wants to expedite the process so that he can start getting leads. Okay. Everybody wants to expedite the process. And the problem is with leads is that questions don't get asked. And the process is like 50% done. In other words, I'm not, as a marketer, maybe I'm not getting all the information I need from the customer in order to do a fantastic job for the guy. And, we find this among outsourced telemarketing companies. They'll turn around, they'll say, okay, well, here's the deal. We'll give you 40 hours of calling, blah, 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 and you give us money. And we say, okay, that's great. We do that. And then once they've got the money, it's like, okay, well, we're going to ask these 3 questions. And if they say yes, then we'll pass the lead on to you. If they say no, we'll just keep it. The problem is that nobody's doing a great job. Somebody has to sit down with the customer and do a great job. Okay. Ask the questions. If you have to ask 4 questions, ask 4 questions. If you have to ask 10 questions, ask 10 questions. But do a great job. Don't make it about the money. And I will I say this to every audience. Companies like Nike are not money-centric companies. They are customer-centric companies. They are always concerned about their customer. Okay? People don't do this. Salespeople make it about the money. Well, hey, I sell this deal, I'm going to make this amount of money in commission. Don't worry about the commission. Be concerned about the customer and how he's feeling and how comfortable he is and what can you do to really put this work that you're doing for him over the top.
I love that, Randy. So I know you have a gift for all of our listeners. So would you be good enough to share details of your gift?
Yeah, actually, I am coming up with a new book in the fall, and it's called Sell to One or Market to Millions. And what I've done is I've taken some highlights from that book, and I've created an ebook called Marketing Magic. And you know what? I think it's some of the best ideas that I've ever come up with in order to drive new sales from a marketing aspect. Okay. So I'm really excited to put that in everybody's hands, and it's going to be absolutely free. And I'll be able to provide a link for you for that.
Okay, wonderful. So everyone, we're going to put the link to Marketing Magic, Randy Crane's Marketing Magic. We're going to put that in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so thank you. Thank you, everyone. You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders. Our special guest today, Randy Crane, the fearless marketer. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then think about one business owner or one sales professional, one entrepreneur, somebody that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.